That the president could take should he find himself backed into a political corner once again. Her latest piece for The Atlantic is entitled, "What the President Could Do If He Declares a State of Emergency." The co-director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice, Liza Goitein, joins us now. So Liza, talk about your piece, and I think it's more timely than ever when you have a Fox News host suggesting that the United States military could conduct its own investigations on Justice Department officials.
Absolutely. There is a vast set of laws, an entire parallel legal regime that becomes available to the president when he declares an emergency. And the decision to declare a national emergency is entirely within the president's discretion. Now, some of these laws and the powers that they give the president are perfectly sensible, but some of them are more like the stuff of authoritarian regimes. We're talking about powers to shut down wire communications, to freeze Americans' bank accounts, to deploy the military to act as a domestic police force, and more. So this is some very frightening stuff, and we have to think very carefully about whether this system is best serving our democracy in these rather uncertain times.
So, Liza, if the president did issue a national emergency, he would have to do so under the National Emergencies Act, which would require the office of the president, President Trump, to issue fairly consistent public declarations of why we need this emergency and how things are doing during the ongoing emergency. So this obviously, given his penchant for lying, would be a problem.
Well, actually, there are very, very few constraints on the president's ability to issue the declaration in the first instance, and then it does expire after a year unless he renews it. But renewing the declaration, again, only takes his signature on a piece of paper, so that's really quite easy. Under the National Emergencies Act, which you mentioned, Congress is supposed to meet every 6 months while an emergency is in effect to consider a vote on whether to end the state of emergency. This law has been in place for more than 40 years, and Congress has never met to consider a vote. Congress has never voted on ending a state of emergency. So the oversight that is supposed to be there has really been absent.
So, Liza, you're talking about some extraordinary measures here, an internet kill switch by which the president could assume control of U.S. internet traffic. Boots on Main Street in the form of troops sanctioning Americans. Is there any buffer here whatsoever between the president and taking this action? In other words, who would stand between the president and this act? Is it the Secretary of Defense, for example? Who would it be if there were someone?
Right. Well, we can't really count on the administration to police itself. So we have to look to the other branches of Congress, of the government. We have to look to Congress, and we have to look at the courts. Now, one of the things we have to worry about in our current political environment is that Congress and the courts might not really be willing to step in and act as a check. And that's why the system that we have that gives the president so much discretion and then sort of crosses its fingers that Congress and the courts will step in if the president goes too far really needs to be rethought by Congress starting now.
Yeah, not exactly reassuring. Liza Goitein, thank you very much. The piece is in the new issue of The Atlantic. Thanks so much, Liza.
Thank you.
All right, final thoughts, John.